This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, understanding the Islamic threat. What an honor to have with us tonight John Guandolo, a former FBI agent, a combat veteran Marine, and now the president of UnderstandingTheThreat.com. John, what an honor and a privilege to have you on the Glazov Gang.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, John. And before we move forward, I just want to thank our guardian angel and this wonderful woman that's on the planet, Amy Meck, for bringing us together. So thank you, Amy. John, let us begin. I want to talk to you about UnderstandingTheThreat.com, but before we do, let's talk about what just happened in Manchester and your perspective on it.
Well, I think, number one, there are several lessons to come out of this. And I want to start out by saying in 2009, I was in the UK and for a number of events, and I met with several of the leaders over there. And one of the things I shared with them is my professional opinion back then was that the UK was finished because I did not see anyone inside the leadership class in Britain that was willing to deal with this threat in the way it needed to be dealt with. And we were actually, myself and a couple of people that I was with, we were taken into areas of East London that quite frankly looked just like Islamabad. And I've been to Islamabad, Pakistan, and that's what it looked like. And this is, that's 8 years ago. And so what we're seeing, especially in Manchester, a place in England that the British government brought in jihadis under the guise of, helping them out and relocating them. And over the last 10 to 15 years, they have publicly demonstrated in Manchester calling for jihad against Britain. And there's been no action by the government other than to protect and appease them. And now you get this. And not only this, you get a bombing by a young man who's a Hafiz. He's memorized the Quran, was a devout Muslim. His father's a pillar at the mosque and in the Islamic community, which is exactly what we have seen in the United States and places like Orlando and elsewhere, where the community knows this is going on and nobody says a word. And now you have arrests tonight of the family because they all knew this was going on and they didn't say a word. And the question is why? And all of these things we're seeing are absolute they're consistent with Islamic teachings, with the Quran and the Hadith, the example of the Prophet Muhammad. And so until we recognize and are willing to talk about the fact that at the core of what we're seeing around the globe is Islam, and deal with it from an honest perspective, then we can't discuss realistic solutions to the problem.
Absolutely, John. And it looks like the left has handed out this template that's just repeated every time by our leaders, or most of our leaders, and by the media, because we're seeing it all over again. Oh, the media and in the UK, we've got these politicians that are worried that Islamophobia might come from this. And, this has nothing to do with Islam. It seems like it's just Stockholm Syndrome over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Jamie. But it certainly is a psychotic disconnect from reality. Yeah. The reality is 100% of the enemy that we're facing, whether it's in the United States or in Canada, in Europe, or on the battlefields in the Middle East or in Africa. 100% of these people say we are Muslims waging jihad in the cause of Allah in order to establish an Islamic state under Sharia. From a war-fighting perspective, the United States, our war-fighting doctrine says that is where you begin a real analysis of the enemy. And since 9/11, we have not done that. We have not looked at Sharia, which is not only what they say they seek to impose, it's the blueprint for how they fight wars, and it's how they communicate. And without transitioning too far, this is why, for instance, or as an example, last week when the Saudi king in Saudi Arabia with the President of the United States gave a speech, if we understood what that speech means when we translate the English translation into English through the filter of Sharia, they are actually telling us exactly what they're doing. But if you don't know Sharia, then you can't understand what it is they're doing.
Absolutely, John. Well, look, you mentioned the new president. I think he offers so much hope. I mean, Hillary Clinton, that was Muslim Brotherhood takeover as far as I see it. So Trump comes in, he has the courage to at least say radical Islam. And, I think Trump offers us a lot of hope in beginning at least a real assessment to take on our enemy. But there's a lot of resistance to Trump inside the government and arguably even within his administration. You're in the know on this. Can you tell us what Trump is up against?
All right, let's just start with the two individuals who are primarily responsible for vetting his national security staff. They turned out to be people batting for the other side, and we were able to get that undone. But they're inside.
Wait, who are you referring to?
They were people that are not known publicly.
Okay.
But they were removed because of the fact that they were literally bringing in people that were sympathetic to the Muslim Brotherhood. And these were non-Muslims that were just accepted inside the intelligence community as being, lifelong staffers and career people.
Right. Now, I'm sorry to interrupt. But what a blessing in the sense that they were gotten rid of, because now at least maybe people like Bannon and Gorka are talking to our president instead of having a Hillary Clinton with Huma Abedin whispering into her ear, right?
Right, of course.
Yeah.
But for instance, we do have a national security advisor in Lieutenant General McMaster who believes that what ISIS is doing is a perverted version of religion. He won't even say it's a perverted version of Islam. Which is absolutely false. It's factually untrue. So you've got a danger there, and I believe he needs to go immediately. He is a danger because he is driving a strategy in the Middle East. Look, we have launched missiles, and we are using our military in that part of the world without, number one, defining the enemy, and number two, without a strategic understanding of what it is we're trying to do, which you can't do if you don't define the enemy.
Well, absolutely. This is what Sun Tzu told us, after all, correct?
That's right. You got to know yourself and know your enemy. I would argue at this point, the United States does not know either at a national security level. I will just say this. This is a really good lead-in. About 9 months ago, the gentleman that ran the Counterterrorism and Technical Support Office in the Irregular Warfare section for the Pentagon at the Department of Defense said that the Muslim Brotherhood controls the national security decision-making process when it comes to the Islamic threat. And that's something that understanding the threat my organization concurs with. Mm-hmm. We have a situation where we are wholly penetrated. This is much more a counterintelligence and espionage matter than it is a, quote, terrorism matter. Yeah. It is very dangerous inside the system. So that, as you mentioned earlier, the president has people that are Republicans who are fighting against him, and they are making it very difficult to identify and pursue these threats at the national security level.
Absolutely. Stephen Coughlin's book, Catastrophic Failure, documents this in a very powerful way and scary way. Yep. John, introduce yourself to our audience a bit, those that might not know about you. I mean, you come from quite a past. Tell us why, and our audience, why, you obviously know quite a bit.
Well, I'm a Naval Academy graduate and spent about 7 years in the United States Marine Corps as an infantry and reconnaissance officer. Served in combat in Desert Storm, and we deployed over off of Bosnia during that time. Joined the FBI in 1996 as a special agent. Spent my first approximately 5 years in the criminal division. And after 9/11 was brought over into the counterterrorism division. And through really a couple investigations, came to know and understand the Muslim Brotherhood jihadi network in the United States, and then realized that a lot of my colleagues had no idea about it. And so I started trying to work with other offices in the FBI and educate. And so in 2006, I put together the first training inside the government on the Muslim Brotherhood, Sharia, their modus operandi, how they operated, and how we can investigatively go at them. And Steve Coughlin was a part of that, the very first training inside the U.S. government. However, as you are well aware, we were able to do one more program in 2007. The problem was we were identifying bad guys who were working with the FBI and were working inside the government as advisors because they are part of the jihadi network. We call them suit-wearing jihadis, but they're jihadis nonetheless. And they're there today. Groups like the Islamic Society of North America, Muslim Public Affairs Council, Muslim American Society, Muslim Legal Fund of America, Muslim Advocates, all kinds of these organizations, including Hamas, doing business as the Council on American Islamic Relations, who are advising and working inside our State Department, DOD, FBI, etc. So we lost 2 wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, despite the fact that our military crushed the enemy on the battlefield. And the reason is because of this penetration, because they are dictating our foreign policy when it comes to the Islamic world, and they're dictating our counterterrorism strategy domestically.
John, sorry to interrupt. This is like during the Cold War that the KGB is actually advising the government on how to deal with the KGB.
That's a perfect analogy. It's insane. It's insanity, and it would be a great Monty Python skit, except for the fact it's real. It's not a joke. And Americans are dead because our leaders don't know what they're doing. And, you know, when you have a professional duty to know something and you don't, legally that's called unprofessional conduct or negligence. When people are dead because you don't know something that you have a legal duty to know, that's called criminal negligence, and we put doctors and lawyers in jail for that. And we need to be putting our professionals in the national security realm in prison because Americans are dead because they're professionally incompetent and they've catastrophically failed in doing their duty.
John, how were you treated overall by the Obama administration?
Well, let me just put it this way. For the 8 years he was in office, when we would do our training, it was wholly rejected, and we got a ton of pushback, not just by Hamas and left-wing groups and anti-American groups like Southern Poverty Law Center, ACLU, Anti-Defamation League, but by the DOJ itself. So we would come into town. Just one quick example, we trained law enforcement officers in Nashville, Tennessee during the Obama administration, and literally the next week, the U.S. attorney brought the Muslim Brotherhood in to train federal agents and state and local police as like a tit for a tat. So that was, it was very much a slog during the Obama administration, and we did not make a lot of headway, although we did plant a lot of seeds around the country. Right now, just in the last, honestly, the last 4 months, we have done a lot of work around the country, and we're still being pursued by Hamas, doing business as CARE, and the local and national media, who calls us all kinds of names, but they aren't able to demonstrate where what we are teaching about Sharia and about the Muslim Brotherhood's jihadi network is untrue. And we've put that on the table for them. If they can show us it's untrue, well, we'll stop teaching it.
John, is the Trump administration a bit better to you?
Well, so far it's been neutral, no response. I mean, I've spoken to individuals in the administration since the prior to and since the election, but so far there's no like policy or no acceptance of the program that's widespread, which is what needs to be done. Right. Let me just say this: the 2 things that we know are true about our program is we just trained, for instance, last week 100 law enforcement officers in Arizona, and recently we trained about 180 in Louisiana, in Louisiana, and we've had FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force people, and the response is at the end of the training, 100% say they did not know the information we put out, and 100% say it's critical to protecting their community. That's where we are today in this war.
Scary stuff. I want to bring you back for part 2. Before we go, just quickly summarize what understanding the threat is all about, and to our viewers that are inspired by you and want to help you and get behind you, where do they go and what can they do?
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. Well, first of all, our expertise is in the Islamic movement in the United States primarily. We do national security consulting on a number of matters, but this is our expertise. And we believe, because the situation in the United States constitutes an insurgency, that the response, a counterinsurgency, puts local police at the tip of the spear. So I would say 90% of our effort, yes, we have briefed numerous 3- and 4-star generals and heads of committees inside Congress and elsewhere. But we believe 90% of our work is best spent, and our time is best spent at the state and local level, meeting with attorney generals, state legislators, and local police, because they are the tip of the spear. Sheriffs and pastors are the most important people in this war. If we're going to win or lose, we're going to win it at the local level, or we're not going to win it. As far as what people can do, we have a number of training programs for law enforcement, intelligence professionals, and citizens. Specifically, one of the most popular ones is our church program, and we've recently waived all our fees because there's a significant threat on American churches as well as European churches. So people can contact us through the website. We would ask you to sign up for our newsletter at understandthethreat.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Understanding the Threat. Like us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, Understanding the Threat. Twitter, UTT_USA. If people can support us, we have a nonprofit that was set up for us by others, our Americans for America campaign, and you can help us online to bring our training for law enforcement to places where the law enforcement can't afford it. But certainly support us in whatever way you can. Prayers are appreciated. This is the war right here, and we need to win it at the local and state level.
John Guandolo, you are a hero. It is an honor to know you and to have you on the show. God bless you for everything you're trying to do for this country.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you, John. And viewers of the Glazov Gang, you have to go to understandingthethreat.com, spend a lot of time on there, and subscribe to everything you can on there and tell everyone about it. Please remember, we're a fan-generated program. Go to jamieglazov.com to support the show, and make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel of the Glazov Gang. Good night.